take your dish in there for you? Mr. Miller?
No, it's not fine.
Okay. The timer went off, it just didn't ding.
Oh.
Hello.
Hi.
Can you check the Facebook group to see if the link works
Yeah.
to the? I'm putting it on the event page and.
Oh, I didn't mean, you can sit here.
No, I didn't know, how, do we have an arrangement, how we're
I
gonna?
don't think so. I saw someone's book, so I said.
It would be me. All right, well, I'm gonna sit on this side, so I won't have my back to you.
Yeah, this is gonna be the camera spot, I don't necessarily need to sit here.
Oh, is this the camera spot?
Yeah, here in a second, I'm probably going to try to use the corner of that
Okay.
table and
All right.
face
Well, then maybe
face
I'm
that
better-
way.
Maybe I'm better over here. Get out of here.
Yeah. I just have you right now.
Okay, yeah, that's on the front camera.
Hi. I'm Bob.
Got it. You sure can. I'd be honored. You guys play over the weekend? T-ball?
Yes.
T-ball, right?
Saturday, we got a game again, both times we keep playing right before it rains.
Oh, good. Oh, someone at our office had some of that one day, and I came in and I said, hey, what is it? What is that smell? It smells like somebody's been sitting at a bonfire. I'm sure it is. Yeah, we went to a hot dog stand.
Nice.
So she called me and or she sent me a text. I talked to her earlier today. She texted me later and said, "What are you doing tonight?"
You guys are going to have to move that way.
All right, we'll move over. And I said, "Well, I got a book discussion at 6:30." She said, "You might have dinner before that." I said, "Yeah, but I don't do it really until about 5:30." Maybe we
Is that
can
the table?
change table. We can just, yeah, we go over the table.
Okay. I think we're still going to have to get a little bit closer in.
How about this red one back here? Right, this all in there?
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder where it's going to be live on Facebook. You can do live broadcast. So he just posted it.
If I'm not closer, I don't think we'll be able to hear.
Hi, everyone.
We met think at Kokomo High School. Actually, I've been in the courtroom a couple of times with kids. And then,
How back now?
good for you, not so much for them.
No. Let's see. Maybe if we
I hate
scoot
to
back.
kind of see you.
Scoot back.
Yeah, we might have a more of a.
Best of luck to you. I sort of hate to see you.
Use the room.
Leave the
I don't know.
So I'm gonna know when someone's on.
I can go on YouTube and then I can.
Okay,
So I'll just, it won't affect what's being broadcast.
okay.
So then their chat comes over here.
Okay. Welcome, welcome.
You didn't say this last round, we just like this fine here, and then the bottom of it is May.
Pastor Beard, how are you, sir?
You Brent Perry.
Yeah, come on over.
Hey.
All right, sir. Good. Saw you, guys had a near death experience over the weekend, huh?
Yeah, we had a closing down with, Bambi. The only problem, we couldn't get Bambi. We had to lay in go away. How are you doing? Harry, my name.
I'm Bob.
How are you doing, sir? Harry.
I'm well, I'm Justin Kingery. Nice to meet you. Oh, yeah.
Okay. Did you post it on the?
Posted on the group and the
And the,
event page.
okay.
And Casey tested it, said he was able to get to it. So.
Okay. Very good. All right, so come on in, Papa. Let's get over here. I'm just gonna sit here. Hi, everybody. Excited about the beginning of this conversation. So there's several more people who are going to join us tonight, but got to get started. And my hopes are that even with our next conversation, that even more people will join us. We also have, we're live streaming. So there are several people, I know some people in Florida, some people in the DC area, just lots of different people on our online community that are very interested in this conversation. And so we hope to just begin a conversation that will create action, right? I'm not really necessarily, just personally, I'm not a person that likes to just sit around and discuss something without, at the end of the conversation, well, how do we apply this, right? And so just keeping in mind the big picture is that at the end of all of this, we're thinking about Kokomo and how do we apply this to, you know, our thoughts and our energies and all of that to the community we live in and that we know and that we're, you know, our growing community, okay? So I know not everyone had an opportunity to read, and that's okay, right? Because tonight is just really about introduction and about just beginning, laying the groundwork for a pretty intense book. If you started reading, then you know why I mean when I say intense. Yeah, I was going back over some stuff today and I'm like, oh God, it's heavy. So, let's go first because it's just a small group of us. Let's go around. I heard some people making some small introductions, but let's just introduce ourselves. But I do want to say first that I want to appreciate Casey and Justin for just their participation and their assistance and just they've been a great team in pulling this together. So I just want to thank them for their help. Let's smile at them. All right. Okay, so we start here.
Okay, I'm Justin Kingery. I work for the public library here. And I'm going to be off screen because people can chat. And if they have any questions, I will pop in and try to sound smart, even though they're probably their questions.
Yeah, I think I know most of y'all. Or everybody. No.
Harry, pass the scissors.
That's my papa.
This is my, there we go. I'm John Miller. I'm a retired airport officer.
I'm Bobby Johnson. I'm teaching McConnell High School, teach social skills.
Casey Klein, I work for Bridges Outreach.
My name is Eric May. I'm the juvenile court.
Who are you?
I'm the juvenile court
Hey,
judge
Mr.
for
Chairman,
Howard
could I-
County, and I'm a part-time attorney.
My name is Brandon Perry, I'm judge at Howard State Court.
I know that's funny, I'm gonna get, I've seen both of y'all.
And that's what makes tonight important, right?
I know the session's on my thing, I went in front of both of y'all.
Yep, that's great, yes.
My name's Alicia.
Very good. Very good. So, those.
We need everybody to speak up.
Okay, that's already been said.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So we're gonna yell at each other, okay? Right? By the time we get to the middle, we won't think it's so weird. Okay. So those of you who have started this book, have read, tonight we talked about starting the introduction in chapter 1. But I think that I want to just hear, those of you who've read at least a piece of it, I just want to hear initial thoughts. So we may not go by the script per se tonight of what, we necessarily planned, because there's so many who haven't really dealt with the entire book. But just give me, so that everybody in the room, maybe if you haven't read, has just an idea of where you are. Like, if you dealt with any struggles, or if you, any thoughts that have come about with reading the book. And it doesn't matter where you start. This conversation, I'm just gonna guide it, but it's our conversation, right? Okay. Anybody, jump in.
So my first impression, of course, was,
Don't forget to yell.
okay, it reminded me of the book by Chauncey McIntyre called The Criminalization of a Race, and she basically outlined the same themes that was discussed in the book here. And there was also a time when I kind of put the book away. It's like, okay, here we go again. We're discussing these things again. What is the end result? Basically, what is the end result? Did this particular author get some insight as far as, hey, look, at the end of this book, I can throw something out there that we can really consider, especially for those individuals that can have an impact. Many individuals can march and we can hold a sign, but what can we do that can begin to turn the tides of concern?
Great initial thought. Anybody else? I think I had a moment like that as well. It's like, it's a little overwhelming, right? It's a little overwhelming, and every person that I've sold this book to, and by the way, this has been the top selling book in the bookstore. From day one, I've sold more copies of this book than any other book in the store. And all different types, not one, type of person, but every person. I know some of you I've sold the book to, I said, this is a book that you're gonna pick up, you're gonna read a little bit, and you're gonna put it down. And you're gonna think about your life as it pertains to some of the historical aspects and some of the things that are discussed. You're gonna put it down, and then you're gonna come back to it, right, and take it in and kind of let it process. So anybody else, what were your initial reactions, your initial thoughts when you began this book?
I'll say something.
Mm-hmm.
I think the book was amazing, really, because it kind of puts everything in perspective. In fact, everything that I've read in the book, I'm read it. So it really begins, it put it in such a way where I couldn't necessarily articulate it the way it's articulated in the book. But then I know I lived each phase of that, and I've lived long enough to see how this thing has played out. Saw it when the first situation began, policies were put in place, how they began. Now I see the impact of it. And now, I'm like all of you, I took the book down, read it, and I gotta stop and think about it. And that's why every time I read a while, in fact, I haven't picked it up for a while. And I lay it down and I think about it because is so close, so true. Can you hear me over there? It's so true to life. Experiences. It's not just something that somebody just kind of in the right about and it's just hocus pocus stuff, but it's just true to life. Now we look at the solution.
Yeah.
How can we? Because I see, especially in the black community, I work with the judges, they work with the youth and especially the black young men, how we can bring them to a place where they can really participate and be a part of this great country and the dream that's here in this country. That everybody can really be a part of that. But the way the system is set up is, and once, in fact, what I do, a lot of the young men who have been incarcerated come back with that F behind their name. You don't know if that is. They get that F behind their name, then they can't get jobs, you know. And I, you know, in a small way, have tried to find jobs for these young men because, again, if they don't get a job and they can't pay the fees, then they go back into the system. And it's interesting.
Anybody else?
We have someone online, Rena?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. She said it was also a very slow read for her and that page 6 was particularly devastating for her. And it looks like that's where she is talking about the notion of genocide.
Yes, I stopped there.
Yeah.
I'm also too.
And how the CIA
Mhm.
was bringing or probably bringing drugs into the country and then declared a war on drugs and then all of a sudden there's all these drugs in black communities.
Yeah, that, oh my God, like, and then when I, like I'm that person that looks at those little numbers or put her notes and I'm like, where'd she get that? Because, I mean, growing up, we used to say, it was conspiracy theory. Like, how did drugs get into these poor neighborhoods? Who's bringing them? For instance, my son's grandfather, my son's dad's father is in New York. And in the 80s, when crack hit the streets of New York City, his dad was on the front line, got strung out, 9 kids. And all the children, everybody was messed up because his father got strung out. So it's a direct impact. And so we had this whole conversation of how did crack get to Harlem? How did crack get to Brooklyn? How did it get there? And how did it stay there? Who was bringing it? Because at that time, you didn't see people jumping on planes and going. And then when I read, I agree. Page 6 kind of threw me for. I'd like to stay there for a while, and took that in. Really? Okay. CIA. Just what we used to say. It makes sense, right? And what do you all think? Is there? When you read it, was that an agreement? Was it a, And this is a conversation, so. Hello, come on in.
I didn't get caught up in the conspiracy theories so much.
Talk really loud.
I didn't get caught up in the conspiracy theories so much, but my undergraduate background's in history and sociology, so this material is very familiar to me just from an academic sense. So in reading it, and my worldview is not colored so much by race as it is by socioeconomic status. And so the point that Michelle Alexander makes as far as socioeconomic status in the book isn't just something that's relegated to one particular race. And I think she makes that overwhelming point, and I think she's going to throughout the book. But looking at it in terms of maintaining the status quo and not, it's not, racial divide in this book isn't the end in and of itself. It's a means to the end of perpetuating the status quo in this country. And you see it in terms of it's constantly, she's constantly speaking about the evolution of this process dating back from Jim Crow to throughout the history of the country. And so you're constantly looking in the first introduction, in the first chapter, as far as what is the next evolution going to be. And when you have the most prominent Republican in the country using language like Mexico only gives us murderers, rapists, and thieves. You see the next evolution of it, which is who do we vilify next?
Right.
Which is going to be immigrants,
Already
Muslims,
is.
and it already is. So when you have that kind of language couched in fear and in just blatant racial terms, I mean, it's hard to ignore what the implication of that is. It's fear mongering by a certain sect of society. Not to say that Donald Trump represents the Republican Party, because there's a lot of division right now. But at the same time, he has to be, looked at as least the spokesman and mouthpiece of the party, and he's certainly going to be in the November election. So to hear him use the same words and phrases to segment a particular part of our community, our society, our country, illegal immigrants, I mean, I see that as being the next wave of what the implications of this book are, which is not necessarily. And when Donald Trump does it, I don't think he does it because he hates Mexicans or he hates Muslims. He does it because it's his way of getting into power, which is, I think, the overarching implication of the book, which is how do we maintain the status quo? And it's not for hatred of Black Americans or African Americans or people of color. It's just a means to an end.
But I think that I agree in part with what you said, Eric. I think that a part of it is, historically, has been a hatred of ... whomever, right? But you really can't, like we all can say that you really can't separate this from the racism and classism, because it all has to do with power, right? And so at the end of the day, yes, it's a means to end, but what is internal, what is in the inside of that, right? What is inside of that? Well, if I can hate you because of the color of your skin, then I can also keep you in a certain, checked in a certain place, a certain area of class because of what the color of your skin. It's like it's all intertwined. I don't see the separation, honestly.
And I don't know how you can separate, I think, the Black experience in this country from what you just said. I don't disagree with that at all.
Right.
I think in working so intimately with the criminal justice system, there's a judge in Marion County, African-American judge, who's been doing my job in Marion County for 10, 20, 30 years now, and has always been a juvenile court judge. He says, in talking about his experience on the bench, he says, I don't see race anymore, I see families, I see poor people, I see people who don't have access to the criminal justice system. So being so intimately close to my little corner of the world, that's what you start to see. You start to see people who have been disenfranchised for a whole host of reasons, but the underlying theme for all of them is they don't have the right access, they don't have the means to afford a $50,000 retainer because they got 28 felonies in Superior Court 1. I mean, people can't afford that. They get a public defender and they do the best they can. People can't afford to post bond when they're doing video court. So sometimes they plead guilty just to go home. I mean, and that's not limited to a Black experience, a brown experience, or any kind of experience. That's limited to a poor experience. These people don't have the means to get out. So, and that's what I see in the bench, from the bench. You see families, you see socioeconomic status, and yes, you see race too. But at the end of the day, the only thing I can control and I'm really affected by is just socioeconomic status. And so, but at the same time, respecting Michelle Alexander's point of view and understanding where she's coming from.
So in your time on the bench, and anybody can jump in at any time. Please do. Invite you. We about to take it.
I was. The only thing I want to say in response to that, while I basically see where you're coming from, is that you can't just totally take the race piece out of it. I don't think you are.
Why not?
Right, but it's one thing to say this is where I see it coming in the next wave, and I absolutely think Muslims in particular are being targeted, but that history there is relatively short, and the history we're talking about with specifically the African American race in this country is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years of history that has now led to the kinds of pathologies you might be seeing play out, and they're different. I guess that's my only point.
And I don't disagree with that,
Yeah.
and I don't think the author disagrees with the implications of what I'm suggesting either, because she encompasses
Yeah.
minorities and those affected by poor socioeconomic circumstances. But I think that it's helpful to just look at, and not necessarily as something contrary to what's in the book, but as something that more that just illustrates their points. I mean, when you hear, again, I don't want to pick on Republicans, but I'm just saying, I mean, Donald Trump does say these things, and it's an easy.
Well, you
look
gotta,
at this, or easy target.
you just can't use Donald. I think that's just an easy way,
Because you haven't embraced that.
well, because Donald Trump, because we all know in our political system as it's set, you're not gonna get elected as a Democrat unless you say things as far left as you possibly can. You're not gonna get elected as a Republican unless you go as far right as you possibly can. That's why we have such a wide gap in Congress, is because you can't win if you're gonna go middle of the road. So Donald Trump has to say wildly outlandish things to get press and to get heard, because people are fed up. And over the next 6 months, he's going to back everything back down to where he normally stays, which is probably somewhere left of center, even. I mean, I don't know, but we'll see in the next few months. But I mean, he's going to say wildly outlandish things like he has been. And as you've seen in the past couple of weeks, he's backing off of those
But
things.
is it acceptable at any
But is it?
point?
No, I don't think
Right.
much of anything that
Right.
any of them are saying is, I mean, it's been ridiculous to watch.
So ugly.
It's one more way to manipulate the population.
Right.
You throw that stuff out there and then you get response.
Especially when you know how fed up people are all over the board. From the left and from the right. People are just fed up with how government is right now and Congress is. And so you say these things that are going to get people talking and moving. And then he's going to have to come back at some point, which he already started doing. But no, I don't think it's acceptable. I think the whole thing's been miserable to watch. And I think it's going to be even worse over the next 6 months with these two that we're going to have going after each other.
It doesn't matter which crew, no matter which way. Donald Trump ain't good. I don't like Donald Trump at all. But I'd rather Donald Trump be president than her. Far from her. But we're both screwed no matter what, because they're both how me and everybody in the jail, we all agree, even the CO, we all agree, they're both idiots.
I think part of what this book did for me was sort of put some of what we hear and see like anecdotally through relationships that we have and through people that we know. And we hear stories like, I'm sure Pastor Beard and Mr. Miller could share lots of. It puts it in numbers, and like numbers that are really difficult to see and to read and to even comprehend. And then as a result of that, you begin to see the systematic sort of destroying of communities, and you begin to see what Eric is talking about. When some of the numbers, I was just looking for them, like 1 in 9 young African-American males at some point will spend time in jail versus 1 in like 106 white males. And like those, when numbers are that disproportionate, that ultimately leads to destruction of the black community. And it leads to because I would agree 100%. The families that I work with, whether you're white or black, if you are poor, things are a struggle. And then if you're black and poor, it's even more of a struggle. And so I would 100% agree that you can't take the socioeconomics out of the equation. That is a huge factor.
And I'll add one more layer to that, and my colleague, my writer, Bill Brady, has been one of the huge advocates in this community for addressing mental health issues. So if you had to pick predominant characteristics in the criminal justice system, you would say socioeconomic and mental health problems. Right. And that's the clientele in moving forward. Not just the children, but the family. It's a family, it's generational issues.
I think what should be, and I think Casey just spoke to where I was going to go next, is keeping at the forefront of mind the disproportionality of the class and all those, but the disproportionality of who's in prison, right? Who is it making? What is the content? Who you see in front of you, right? Or who's being arrested? The disproportionality. That to me is I think Michelle wants us to deal with, right? Because she doesn't disinclude, make up my word, classism. She doesn't take that out of the picture, but to the forefront is, look at these numbers, like Casey just said, look at these numbers. And just like anecdotally, moving back to Kokomo, I grew up with a whole group of guys, like really, really good friends right here in this community. And they were raised in the same neighborhood as I was. I mean, Kokomo is Kokomo. I tell people all the time, what hood? People say there's a hood. Where? I mean, when I hear people now like coming into like this professional like business world, and I hear people come in and say, well, somebody said not to go, that I shouldn't go down this street, I shouldn't go to the north end. I'm like, really? I didn't know that, because guess what? I don't run at night. I go anywhere. I mean, I never even knew that people thought literally, and so I moved back here, people had that thought in Kokomo. But upon returning, I realized, I looked around my circle of friends, of guys, and I promise you all, out of the group, say a group of 15, no less than 9, maybe 10 had been caught up within the system and choices of their own, right? But then it was the part about how did they get out? And then what happens when they try to get out? You know, I mean, in my own family.
Let me jump in on
Got
that.
it.
I have a son that was in the system, and were not for his parents. He would be in prison right now because they can call you, as you all know, they can call you any time of day or night and ask, give you a test. Now, if you don't have the resources to take that test, then guess where you're going? You're going back to jail. So I believe this. I understand the system, and it is social economics. But the other part of that if you have that F behind your name, then 9 times out of 10 you're not going to get a job unless I take them over to the hog plant. I call it the hog plant. I take a lot of guys over there to get a job so that they can stay out of the system. But what about the fellows that don't have someone, a hairy beard, that say, okay, come on, I'm going to take you over here, or help you, or go and vouch for them and say, listen, this young man, he's already really want to get out of the system. Give him a chance. And I've had that happen at Marsh Food Line. The manager said that under normal circumstances, I look at your application, and guess what? It would have been in file 13. But guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to take this application, I'm going to walk it through myself. And this happens over and over. So they're the economics right there, because they can't get a job, get out of the system, and consequently they go back to jail, and it's just one big cycle.
For the first, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I think as Americans, we're conditioned to think in terms of individuals, but to a fault. You know what I'm saying? Like, yes, individuals make choices. We won't forget that, we're Americans. But this idea of being part of communities is so relevant to this discussion. So, like, for example, I have a relative who, we have these conversations sometimes about race, and he's 87, okay, so a little context. And he would not listen to too many people on this subject, but he would listen to me, he knows me. And so I tried to make the point to him that while my ancestors were poor and white, but were climbing a certain ladder and building generational wealth over X number of years, my black counterparts, their families weren't doing that. Not at all, for so many reasons. But so we're here today, and I've had all the opportunities that are afforded to me, while so many of my counterparts or other races have not had that opportunity.
I'm not saying for the judges, I'm talking probation and parole. No offense.
No, nobody's offended, just.
I'm just saying because you gotta admit, like I said, it's good, you know, that now they have, so you can't pay for probation, all the drug tests and stuff, they can make you do community service, do that, which is a good thing, which I like when they probably done that. But you got they put some people in that power that don't even like none of the people that they parole probation. They're trying everything in their power just to get them right back in where they come from. Right back, they ain't trying to help you, the probation officer, they ain't trying to help you, they don't even like you. So they'll give you a little bit of rope just so that they gave you just enough rope on purpose just so you can hang yourself. There you go. Here, hang yourself real quick.
And I agree with you. I think there are not just in our probation department, but I mean, before I was a judge, I was a criminal defense attorney for 11 years all over central Indiana. And virtually every probation department I ever had contact with, there were people in the probation department that wished they were police officers, and they treated the people as if they were a police officer.
Right.
As opposed to, as I'm supposed to be helping you integrate back into life and helping you become a productive member of society again, because you made a mistake, and helping to accomplish those things. And part of that is because probation officers in different places have incredible caseloads that there's absolutely no way they can give individual attention to every person. And counties don't have enough money to lessen their caseload by hiring more probation officers. But then when you hire the probation officers, you have to hire people that have a heart for it. I mean, you have to have the heart that you want to reach out and help this person out, instead of being a police officer to give you enough to hang yourself. And that's a difficult thing. And I, when I was a defense attorney, and I had a lot of my own Kokomo as well, and represented a lot of my friends from high school who made that mistake, and who ended up having an F behind their name. Whether they went to prison or whether they just went on probation, they still were felons. And back then, now we actually have a list in the courthouse of people locally that will hire felons. But that thing's only still one page long, out of thousands of places that hire people. We have one page where you can go try to find a job. My brother-in-law is an African American and is a felon. And he got his when he was 17. And it took him until a year ago that when we as a family tried to pull every string we could pull, because like you said, Mr. Beard, you have to take an interest and try to get out to help someone. I mean, on his own, he never would have gone to crisis. But with people in the community that are family to him forever, that we try to get that accomplished, he's there. He's there every day. He works hard. He does his job. He just needed that chance. But to get there, there are some people that have that open mind, but then there are a whole lot of others, whether you're white, black, even, with that effort, I mean, they're not going to take that shot.
Some people they don't have the back, they don't have the support. Some people that do have the F now, they're making laws that in a certain job now, they're making a lot of jobs using the government school. Now the government said they don't hire felons.
Right.
Everybody's saying they don't hire felons. So basically, if anyone went to jail, you might want to kiss your life to life. Might as well make your own grave and go in there.
And a lot of people have even, they get that felon for, then when you get out and you can't get your job and you have your kids, and you can't pay support, then you catch another felon. Which is why, I mean, Eric runs the child support court that we started to try to get people jobs, and it's a program where they don't have to go to that probation. There's an officer in there that has that heart to help them try to get that job and to get this pay and support, and then the felon goes away. I mean, so try to. It's a there's no easy answer, obviously.
No,
We haven't had meetings 200 years.
Right.
But,
And I'll just say, I was a juvenile probation officer before I went to law school, and adult probation does not work for the juvenile court system. I have my own juvenile probation department. They don't work for me, they work for my boss, Judge Murray. But there are probation officers in adult probation who ought not be probation officers.
Right.
They don't get it, they don't understand, and I wouldn't have them there if I had any say in it. But coming from the juvenile system, we approach juvenile delinquency much different in this community than we treat adult offenders. We look for reasons and opportunities for our probationers to succeed rather than looking for reasons for them to fail. And as Judge Perry, and this is what I'll point out about Judge Perry, he's a Republican, I'm a Democrat. We have worked together on many different projects in this community because I think we have some fresh ideas and fresh perspective on things. And what I've been doing in paternity court in particular, when you have people who can't pay their support, the typical civil remedy would be threaten them with jail time.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, that's the best and worst thing the court can do. But instead of doing that, I've taken the approach that, okay, what obstacles do you have that are preventing you from getting the job and paying your child support? Well, I got a felony. Well, I don't have my GED. Well, then enroll in the Excel Center. I'll review the case in a month. I'll see what your attendance is.
Right.
And I'm not giving you a pass to not pay your support, but I'm just saying, if you have attended the Excel Center every single session and are working toward your diploma, I won't throw you in jail. But if you're just giving me, feeding me a line about bettering yourself and you're not really doing it, or if you need resume help at work one, or if you need some mental health services, we'll help accommodate that. And so this new problem-solving court that Judge Perry and I have partnered on, where they actually have a felony charge, we actually get that felony charge dismissed, and we're able to provide more hands-on service and counseling, essentially, life coaching for the participants, so they don't have that felony charge on the record. And so, which brings me back to my original point, why you need to look at this in terms of socioeconomic status, is because we've all touched on the solution to the problem, which is economic opportunity and political empowerment. And so a lot of people don't realize in Indiana, for example, felons can vote. And I don't know how many people I've talked to in the community who didn't realize that.
Right.
Felons can vote.
That is a lot of felons
what's
didn't know
your-
they were locked up during the time they passed that law. So no felons really knew that they were locked up. They were simply trying to fight their probation officer, and they didn't even have time to look at the news and say, oh, we can vote now?
Right. Well, yeah, people don't.
Which is one thing I told the probation officers. You need one thing in America, we're blessed, we have an opportunity to go out there and vote for our leaders. And these people that are coming in that have felonies, you need to advise them that you can vote. Part of them being on probation, you should help them register to vote. I mean, and you get mixed results, like you said, you get mixed results to say, I don't have time to do all that. I have 800 people that need this. And then you have others that say, that's a good idea, but I mean, just.
But I see that as a solution to the problem. It's economic opportunity and political empowerment. If people realize that, then that's the only way you can effectuate change. And we can couch it in whatever terms you want to do. It's a book that predominantly talks about race relations or socioeconomic status or political disenfranchisement. But at the end of the day, those are the answers to the problem. I think.
The economics, the school Excel Center, these other, all these firelights, all this stuff, they only, like Excel Center, only certain felons can go in that program. Firelight, certain felons can only go into that program.
But I want to say this, these are programs that, Twilight, The Crossing, Excel Center, amongst others, those are programs that we did not have in Howard County up until about 5-6 years ago. And before that, Kokomo Center schools had one of the highest expulsion rates in the state. And then these alternative schools came about, and I think every county school now has their own alternative school program. We have a school even at the Kinsey Center that we partnered with Kokomo Center schools on.
Yeah.
So I think, but I agree with you. If they're not taking everybody, that's going to be a problem.
Like, for a little offense, I don't have my high school diploma, I have a GED, and I can't apply in none of those schools.
I think it makes a difference too, because when you don't have the support system that you need, and you don't have someone who can believe in you, I think that's when the mental health coincides with the justice system, because I think a lot of criminals, they will continue their pattern, not only because they're at dead ends, there's nothing that they can do to move forward. And so it's a constant cycle of, okay, well, my life is pointless, my life is worthless, like there's nothing I can do, so I might as well go back to jail. There's no,
That's something they know they can do that. They know how jail
That's
works.
the
I know how
easiest
this
thing
works.
to
I know I get up at this time, do this, gotta do this, eat breakfast here, lunch there, I might as well do that because I know this with no surprises.
That's the only thing they know how to do,
Well,
is be in jail. It's easier to be in jail than it is to try and follow through with the rules and regulations that it means to be a citizen in the community.
And it's difficult for adult felons to get back into the game, so to speak. And the reason why I've been in juvenile court for so long, for example, maybe past my time, it's like Frederick Frederick Douglass said, I'd rather build strong young men than repair strong children than repair broken men. And there's a lot of truth in that, and that's really where it starts. And again, in my small corner of the world, when you're dealing with juveniles and you're dealing with paternity cases in particular, you're on the front lines of what's going to be the next generation of either the leaders in this community or the people who are going to be locked up. And so you really, and that's why it's such important work, and that's why we, Judge Perry and I have partnered so much on these projects, because he too realizes the importance of this is a foundational period for a lot of these kids and families, and we need to invest there and just hope for the best in some cases with some of these older generations, because that's our future. That's why it's a priority for me.
I don't give you that, because I didn't went up against you when I was younger, 3 times, and yes, you have. I will give it to you. And it really is, that's where you really needed that, is the juvenile. And you have.
Well, I appreciate you saying that.
And then you really have. Even though a lot of was all kids, so we always want to hate all authority figures. But we will say that you have been more fair than any other trip. Like people like, man, he was giving you like 60 more days later. Well, you did just cuss him out. So I would do the same thing.
Well, no, because I came my community service contract that I had to sign when I was a kid, my girlfriend. And I switch it up with the girls.
Some people,
I've been there, done that too. I know how it is.
Some people there's the attitude. Some people is like, well, you really need the attitude. You just walked in and just he didn't give you what you wanted. You wanted to go off. Actually, he could have gave you what's worth, but you're not taking that. I guess you're gonna take what you get.
Well, doesn't matter now.
Let's go here to the online first, and then we can right after.
So she says about economic opportunity is that we have an economy that has been fueled by and built upon forced labor and prison labor, and that we need a total paradigm shift.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point.
We have an economy right now that's based on cheap labor.
Yes.
When Governor Pence came to office, he said, well, we're going to do right to work, we're going to do all these different programs that's going to make it an environment and a state that's hospitable to all these big businesses to come. Well, what did Carrier do? Carrier up and left Indianapolis and forfeited millions of dollars worth of incentives. Why? Because they want to exploit cheap Mexican labor pennies on the dollar. And that's why, and that has nothing to do with race. That has everything to do with economics. So you don't want to miss the ball on the economic aspect of it.
Well, I think it has a little bit to do with race. I mean, when you take something like food, in that there is a race of people you can exploit and not pay.
Right.
So if you eat a tomato in the winter, it was probably by someone who's living in a trailer, not being paid, and it's not a white person.
I don't disagree with that, but I will only say that it wouldn't matter what our neighbors to the south were in terms of their race, as long because
what it is.
I think it is.
It's straight economics.
Right.
It's straight economics.
But it's still couched in race. Like it doesn't. No matter what, whoever it was, the fact still remains that the people who are started off are still Mexican, and it's still this idea of we can marginalize them and we can use them for cheap labor. So no matter what, it's still right.
No matter what happens or what goes down, no matter the legal system or anything in particular, there's always, no matter how we all hate to admit it, there's racism in every single thing we do. It's there. It's never gonna go away. So everyone needs to quit trying to deny it. It's there. But there's a lot of people that they're talking about they want to pull the race card. No, I'm sorry. Like few of my people, you went up against Harry or Minges, or you talking about, oh man, you didn't give me, or you did just went up against him 20. This is your 20th time going in front of him. I'm pretty sure he's tired of seeing you. Gave you a chance to have a chance. Don't pull the race card now. Don't pull that race card now. You came up with him at 20 times, and he told you the next time you sit in front of you, he ain't gonna take it easy on you. You did the same thing with him. You did the same thing.
Tell me about, based on your scenario that you just said, tell me about the individual, his history. Tell me about that individual who went before the judge sometime or more.
He's still doing the same thing. He ain't changing it. He ain't trying to change. They come and try.
How about that? What do you know about his wife?
And what did he originally do to be put in the
well,
I
know. Well, since he was ever, my thing is he kind of got into selling drugs at 13. And he never wanted to act, like he was cool, he was very cool until he turned 13, then he just pulled away from everybody. He pulled away from his mom, his dad, everybody. He really didn't care about no one anymore. The only one he really talked to was me. Because I snatched him up a few times. But, you know, he just kept going, you know, and then, you know, you could see that, and you could just see by how he hanging out that he didn't want to change. He liked doing what he was doing. No matter what, who would left him or who didn't want to hang out with him no more, he really didn't care. All it was him and me, myself, and I. You know, but you can see he's a very good person. You can see because he's quick to help somebody. He's very quick to help somebody. He's just really, you know, hanging out with the wrong people.
The reason why I asked that because you mentioned the age of 13. And again, my thing is, okay, at 13, what was this young man doing? You know, what school did he attend? Was he a part of the Kokomo community or some other community?
He's been to like every school I've been. I've been to every press, and he has been to every school. We both kept getting kicked out of this one, went to this one. You know, to us, school was our playtime. It wasn't learning time, it was our playtime. That's all it was for us. And him, once he started learning, you know, the street world, he just fell in love with it. He fell in love with it. He loved that. He hated being broke. He hated not having money in his pocket. He kind of hated his dad, but that was kind of cool. He just hated everybody.
The reason why I say that is because these individuals had a beginning somewhere. Many times I would look at I think it's Kokomo Tribune, not Perspective, one of them. They put the pictures of people who got caught up in the system, the criminal justice system. They put the pictures and what they had done. And many times I would, especially my spouse who was an educator, I would say, where did this individual come from? Are they new to this community? Did they grow up in this community? Did they participate in the Kokomo or Howard County school system? Because somewhere, something has broken down for that 13-year-old to go into that system, go into this criminal justice system. What I'm saying is that if you want to be realistic, there's one thing that comes to mind, and you kind of mentioned it, but it's called racism and white supremacy. And you have to understand it. Because if you don't understand it, we can always have good conversation. But if you read the introduction in the first chapter, the speaker is talking, or the author is talking about this. She's pointing to something that's controlling this. And sometimes even when somebody has to educate me for Donald Trump, well then who does he represent? I'm just saying, somebody who does he represent?
The 13 also happened to, because even though he really didn't like a lot of people he loved, he adored his little sister, and that was the year when she passed away.
Yeah, because we talk about having a support system, but when you look back into, I would say, the African American history, we had some times in our history where we were building these things. When you look at Tulsa, Oklahoma, you have to do the history. But there was a community that had professionals that was doing real good. But somehow they started a rumor that was untrue within the white community, and they came in and tore up that whole community. Ran everybody out.
I was going to say, partner that with the fact that, in my mind, there's a power elite that pits lower class whites against blacks.
Oh, yeah,
and what happens then,
the
author
she talked about that.
Right,
Yeah.
what happens is, then the blacks pick up the lower rung of the ladder, and the whites then feel kind of empowered, and so whatever the power elite says, if they say be racist, it's the black's fault, then I'm going to stand in, I'm going to say, you know it's those black folks. You know, so I think white folks are used, lower class white folks are used to relegate black folks to a lower rung of the ladder. And that way the power elite can stay in the position they are, and like Eric said, they can guard their little realm of kingdom. They do well.
What you just said, she talked about that in the introduction a little bit of this chapter. That's pretty evident. But my thing again is, we talk about, I heard the support system. What is a support system? We talk about community. But we try to build community, but something happened. Even when I go back and I start reading the history of the Black Panther Party, all of a sudden they took on a whole different characteristic. But before that, they were about building the community, so to speak, educating, providing,
Breakfast for
school.
kids.
I would think that would have been good. But somehow, there is a system that said, no, we're not going to have that, let that happen. Even when I go back and look at the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he talked about economics, what we needed to do in order to provide jobs for our community and this type of thing. We had the profession to do it. But then all of a sudden, things started happening, and when you can, and it's documented as far as, what's that guy's name who was head of the, Hoover, about what he had done. So eventually, we talk about these systems and support, but for some reason, when we tried to build those systems and support within our community, so to speak, it didn't happen. So when I think about that 13-year-old that you talked about, who always 20 times before the system, the law, about economics, what we needed to do is when we tried to build those systems and support within our community, so to speak, it didn't happen. So when I think about that 13-year-old that you talked about, who always 20 times before the system, the law, about economics, what we needed to do is when we tried to build those systems and support within our community, so to speak, it didn't happen. So when I think about that 13-year-old that you talked about, who always 20 times before the system, the law, about economics, what we needed to do is when we tried to build those systems and support within our community, so to speak, it didn't happen. So when I think about that 13-year-old that you talked about, who always 20 times before the system, the law, about economics, what we needed to do is when we tried to build those systems and support within our community, so to speak, it didn't happen. So when I think about that 13-year-old that you talked about, who always 20 times before the system, the law, about economics, what we needed to do is when we tried to build those systems and support within our community, so to speak, it didn't happen. So when I think about that 13-year-old that you talked about, who always 20 times before the system, the law, about economics, what we needed to do is when we tried to build those systems and support within our community, so to speak, it didn't happen. So when I think about that 13-year-old that you talked about, who always 20 times before the system, the law, about economics, what we needed to do is when we tried to build those systems and support within our community, so to speak, it didn't happen. So when I think about that 13-year-old that you talked about, who always 20 times before the system, the law, about economics, what we needed to do is when we tried to build those systems and support within our community, so to speak, it didn't happen. So when I think about that 13-year-old that you talked about, who always 20 times before the system, the law, about economics, what we needed to do is when we tried to build those systems and support within our community, so to speak, it didn't happen. So when I think about that 13-year-old that you talked about, who always 20 times before the system, the law, about economics, what we needed to do is when we tried to build those systems and support within our community, so to speak, it didn't happen. So when I think about that 13-year-old that you talked about, who always 20 times before the system, the law, about economics, what we needed to do is when we tried to build those systems and support within our community, so to speak, it didn't happen. So when I think about that 13-year-old that you talked about, who always 20 times before the system, the law, about economics, what we needed to do is when we tried to build those systems and support within our community, so to speak, it didn't happen. So when I think about that 13-year-old that you talked
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.